Hello there, today me and Ben are going to be reacting to brand new Star Wars What If. This one is called What If Order 66 malfunctioned or worked on half of the clones. It's actually going to be a two-part video, so this is part one, as it's a pretty long What If, 33 minutes I'm pretty sure. So this is part one. And hey, this one is made by Pente Patrol Star Wars. Subscribe to him, link to his channel, and link to the original video down below in the description of the video. Show him some love. He makes awesome What Ifs. And remember, this is part one. Part two will be linked in the description. It's going to come out at the same time as this video. And without further ado, let's get right into the reacting.
Hello. Our story
Hello.
begins in the clone barracks on the Resolute inside of Coruscant's atmosphere.
What?
Commander Appa had just received orders from the Chancellor himself, something about an Executive Order 66.
What?
Appa turned to the other men and asked them if the order made any sense to them. Some of
Bro doesn't know what Order 66 is. That's insane.
the clones turned their heads towards their commander and questioned what he wasn't understanding. Appa looked around. A few of the men didn't know what was happening either. They were still very confused. The few troopers who understood the orders told Appa that their directive was to go to the temple and kill the Jedi for treachery against the Galactic Republic.
Shit.
Appa was typically one for following orders, but these sounded wrong. He believed it was a separatist conspiracy. Even though he took orders from the Chancellor's comm signal itself, nothing about this felt right. The other clones could see where he was coming from, too. The fact that it legitimately could be a separatist plot felt reasonable. Kenobi was likely going to kill Grievous on Utapau, and the Seppies could be getting a little antsy. Plus, if it was actually the Chancellor, why would he be wearing a hood over his head? It seemed like the type of thing a commando droid would do. After all, the old ARC troopers, Fives and Echo, reported that being the case for their first mission on the Rishi Moon at the beginning of the war.
Fives and Echo, I love them. They are the best clones ever, right? No arguing.
The clones started to agree, but those who had their chips working started getting hostile with the others. They told their commander that by not following those orders, they'd be court-martialed, stripped of their command, and then executed for treason against the Republic. Appa may have been new to his post, and so he didn't have the extended seniority like Captain Rex would've, but he wasn't going to stand for this type of behavior. He told the troopers to stand down, and the trooper didn't. Instead, he took it upon himself to strike Appa across the face, before pulling his blaster and shooting the commanding officer in the chest. There was no stun either. The trooper then told everyone else that if they weren't going to comply with Order 66, then they would face the same fate. Appa cried out for a medic. The room was completely still, until the medic ran over to help him. The trooper with the gun turned back and told him that if he moved another inch, he too would be shot. The other Order 66 infected clones were copying this trooper's motions. The tragedy for the clones that the executive order didn't work on is they were just confused. Their commanding officer was just shot without any merit, and now everyone was rebelling. Those without working chips raised their weapons and faced down the active troopers. It was a quick reflex. Half the men didn't have their weapons set to stun, everyone else didn't. It was chaos, and then the medic told the trooper that Appa needed assistance. Without a hint of hesitation, his wrist tilted down and aimed for Appa's head. Before the trigger could be pulled, one of his brothers fired a stun round, and the barracks subsequently erupted into chaos. Men were killed, stunned, and wounded. They ducked behind cover, not knowing which of their brothers had active or inactive chips in their heads. This alerted other parts of the ship, especially being that the encrypted comm chatter for the clones was bursting out with the same order, execute Order 66. These clones ran to their brothers in the barracks, some of them being killed the second the doors opened. It was pandemonium. Inside the bridge, Admiral Yularen gave Skywalker clearance to land, and then he told him to be wary. The entire ship was turning into a slaughterhouse. Troopers with active chips were much more aggressive to their brothers, and it was costing the lives of several clones. This was entirely due to the fact that the clones with active chips firmly believed everyone not cooperating with them was a rebel to the Republic. Order 66 needed to be taken with seriousness, and they needed to follow orders immediately. As Anakin received the intel from Admiral Yularen, his act dropped. Initially, he planned on meeting up with the clones, taking their gunships to the surface, and then marching up to the side of the temple. But he was confused now. What were the clones doing? As he ran around the corner, one of the men who wasn't even wearing his armor told the general that there was something wrong. The clones kept repeating the same order over and over again. They also said something about being good soldiers. Anakin didn't even register what happened to Tup or Fives. He just ran forward, looking to stop the conflict. He ignited his lightsaber and told them to stop what they were doing, but they barely listened. All of them were informed via Palpatine's hologram that Skywalker was not a Jedi anymore, and therefore not a target of concern. The clones told him to get down and out of the way. The others were out of their mind or something. The pure confusion was enough to put any clone into fight or flight. Then Anakin looked down to the dead troopers, one of which being Commander Appa, and for the first time he realized that perhaps his actions were wrong.
Yeah, Anakin, you monkey, this is your fault. Your fault. Alright?
But this little self-realization didn't stop anything. One of the active chip clones threw a thermal imploder across the room, and it ripped a hole in the side of the Resolute, not to mention throw Anakin into a wall and send a couple dozen men to their deaths. When Anakin came to, the clones were moving out. Most of those with inactive chips had stunned those with active chips, but the damage had been done. He rubbed his head, asking himself what he had done. As he looked over, one of the men noticed he was getting up, and they ran to his side. They gave him a debriefing, one that revealed there was an issue with this galaxy-wide. The Coruscant Guard was active, but they weren't going anywhere near the temple. Instead, they were having a non-divisive move to the Senate building. It was still the same case of half the chips working, but they weren't hunting or killing Jedi, so no need to worry about the Order going off in their minds. They were just going to the Senate building to defend it, with whatever Order 66 was. On Keda Nemodia, ARC-170's trailed Plo Koon, one of his men taking a literal bullet for the Jedi General, when their captain tried to target him. On Felucia, Ayla felt the change from her clones and defended herself as Bly and a couple other men were killed for betraying the Republic. Ayla escaped into the tree line and barely survived. On Kalar, Depa Balaba and Caleb Doom escaped with the Bad Batch, Crosshair's chip not activating when the Order came in. Kiadi-Mundi still got gunned down. No need to worry about that. Bakra didn't need to have
Kiadi-Mundi, no one likes him, so...
an active chip to follow that order. Cody followed the order on...
Yeah, but dude, Commander Bakra, he's like crazy and psychotic like Kiadi-Mundi, so he didn't need the chip to activate the order because he would follow the order anyway.
Utapau, but one of his men tackled him, resulting in the death of the mutineer. Similar to what happened on Coruscant, the clones turned on each other, even in the heat of combat. This wasn't because the inactive troopers were defending the Jedi, it was 100% because the active clones believed the inactive clones were traitors, and due to the inactive clones refusing to kill their brothers, a lot of innocent men were killed in the process. Back on Coruscant, Anakin again tried to stop the clones, but they had since made a push against the active troopers. The men who hadn't reacted to Order 66 were coming out on top, simply because they were trying to defend their brothers. Medics were rushing the hallways and got to work. The Jedi Temple reacted immediately, thanks to Syndralik getting information from around the galaxy, not to mention the change in the Force, because while some of the most elite Jedi survived the ordeal, there were still thousands of Jedi killed in the execution of Order 66. It just wasn't nearly as effective as cities hoped it would have been. Anakin, upon trying to stop his troopers, looked down and saw a dead clone. Their eyes were rolled backwards and they weren't even wearing their armor. They were sleeping, woke up to the commotion, only to die to one of their own brothers. Anakin then remembered Fives and Top. All of a sudden, his anger grew. He realized that there was one individual behind this. Palpatine was behind everything.
Really, Anakin? Palpatine? Oh, your master. Stupid crybaby monkey.
He didn't understand. How did he never see this? Truthfully, he must have been blind, because how didn't he figure out that Palpatine was behind everything that happened? Every time Padme's life was risked, it was because of Sidious, and now Anakin would take his anger out on the Sith Lord. As Skywalker made a move for the executive building, he informed the Battle Master of the Jedi Order that Palpatine was behind the recent activities. He was heading there to stop him. He was the Sith Lord. Syndralik tried to stop Skywalker, but he turned off his comms and continued forward. When Anakin landed, he had no issues. He simply walked past the guard without having to struggle or anything. Once he entered the Emperor's office, Palpatine was collecting the data chips on everything he needed to prove the assault made by the Jedi. As a result, he turned all the cameras and microphones back on. When he saw Skywalker, he was confused, but Anakin demanded to know why he would lie. Palpatine got defensive very quickly and informed Anakin that he didn't know what he was talking about. Skywalker said that when Top and Fives died, they had cracked the code. Fives was angry with Palpatine because he knew the truth, not because of anything else. Everything Palpatine was a liar and a fiend who used the war to get power. Anakin clenched his fists and then pointed at Palpatine, telling him that he lied. Sidious just watched his very angry pupil and then reminded him that they could save the ones he cared about from dying. Anakin used the Force to crush a chair in front of Sidious. Anakin called the bluff. He knew Sidious didn't care about his family. Sidious only wanted one thing, and that was power. He would do anything to get it. Anakin also noted one key thing that Sidious said right in front of him. Palpatine said they could discover the secrets together. Palpatine didn't even know how to do it. And Anakin...
Really, Anakin? Now you're fucking figuring this out. You absolute monkey. Oh my god.
Felt so stupid for blindly falling for it. Skywalker ignited his lightsaber and stormed forward. Palpatine found amusement in this, telling Anakin that he was making a mistake. As Skywalker swung forward, Sidious blocked and parried. The speed of Palpatine was remarkable to Anakin. He was pushed backwards, and he realized that perhaps he was in over his head. Sidious thrusted forward, playing a very similar game to the one he played against Windu. This time, Anakin wouldn't have the same skill to keep up with him. Windu was an exceptional talent, and Skywalker hadn't reached that stage in his life yet. Sidious also wasn't trying to kill him either. Their blades passed back and forth. As they did, a commotion could be heard outside the room. Neither of them noticed. Anakin was using all of his anger and power. Sidious pushed him further, because he wasn't going to kill a future pupil. There wasn't even a doubt in Palpatine's mind that Skywalker would still fall to the dark side. It would be very simple for him. He laughed and laughed as their duel continued. Anakin finally took an advantage, throwing his blades forward, and Sidious sidestepped with a quick movement. Then he heard a man's voice tell him to stop. Sidious used electricity and shot Skywalker into the back, throwing him against the wall. When Sidious turned around, the Temple Guard was present with Shaak Ti, Coleman Kaj, and Sindralik. He could fight all this potentially. Sidious raised his blade.
Bro, ain't no way he's fighting 3 Jedi Masters, the Battle Master, and fucking, like, however many Jedi fucking guards are there. I don't know how many. He didn't say how many. Ain't no way he's doing that, though. There's no way.
And Anakin watched. The next thing Anakin knew is he was being pulled out of the room. Sidious was cutting down Temple guards as one of them fought alongside him. Battlemaster Sindralik was able to hold his own, as was Shaak Ti, but Coleman Kaj and a number of other Temple guards were struck down. When Anakin woke up, everything had seemingly changed. Ahsoka's vessel made it to Coruscant, but she had to escape with the help of Rex and Jesse. Rex's chip still activated, but Ahsoka was able to get him the help he needed, thanks to distractions in the vessel. Inside the Senate building, the clones took it back over, but before their escape, Sindralik was able to pull all the data from the room, meaning he had the conversation with Windu, with Anakin, the execution of Order 66, and
oh shit! Anakin is going to be exposed because he cut down Mace Windu. Alright.
everything. He could use these against the Chancellor, and he planned on doing so. The Jedi Temple was a fortress now. When Anakin woke up, Sindralik demanded the frequency of Padme, or somebody else he was close to, and he gave it without ever thinking. Sindralik then sent all the information to her so that she could be ready. Anakin missed a lot while he was unconscious. The temple stood tall, and there were Venators moving towards it. The defenses were up and activated. They wouldn't be able to hold off from an orbital bombardment though. At the same time, Sidious called for an emergency session, not knowing that Sindralik got all the recordings from his office. As the Senate convened, he informed them that there had been a Jedi rebellion, but Padme Amidala was able to stand against it. There was enough time where she could gather all the information she was given by Sindralik via hologram to prepare a stand against whatever Palpatine had to say. Not to mention, with Rex having removed his chip and Jesse doing the same since their arrival, they too were able to deliver information over hologram to disprove anything that Sidious tried to say. Sidious was very displeased with the outcome of everything, but he used this as a chance to stall. He had backups in place, and they were already working, but if the Jedi called his bluff, which they did, he would have had to alter his own backup plans. Grand Inquisitor was already taking Maul off of the vessel that he arrived in, still inside the sarcophagus. Grand Inquisitor did need to kill a couple of clone troopers to do so, but they were disposable, no need to worry about wasting their lives. Sidious fought for hours inside the Senate, informing them that it was all a lie, but the information Padme had was valid, and she continued proving point after point after point. Sidious could see the Senate rally against him, which truthfully was a terrible shame. They would all die at one point or another. He tried to tell them that she was lying, but with concrete proof from holograms and clone troopers themselves, it was clear there was a greater threat here. Also, a big reason the Senate was willing to support this is because with Dooku and Grievous dead, the war should come to an end. So they could resume democracy without a wartime leader. It would just require them electing a new chancellor or an interim at the very least. Because Palpatine wouldn't just leave the Senate defeatedly, the clones with inactive chips would come in and aim their weapons at Sidious. They would fire at him, but being the masterful Dark Lord of the Sith, he'd be able to escape. The Senate felt like they cracked the case on this one, and with all the control in their hands, they did everything in their power to end the chain of executive orders that Sidious had. This did reposition the Venators that were closing in on the temple, but it did not solve the issues of the execution itself. There were still thousands of clones and Jedi that had been killed as a result of the Order. Now the Republic would have to pick up those pieces. Due to the plan going wrong for Sidious, he met up with Grand Inquisitor over Coruscant. After that, they departed for Mustafar. He had his plans set in place to build an empire. He would now have to be the one that forced it into construction. As they made their way across hyperspace, Sidious said hello to an old friend. Palpatine had no issue with using Grand Inquisitor as a student. but he would prefer someone with the skill and power of Maul. However, he needed to make sure Maul would serve him. Obviously, due to being stuck inside the Mandalorian sarcophagus, Maul was petrified of his master, and just like his reaction after Sidious killed Savage, Maul would be willing to do anything to have mercy from his former teacher. Sidious predicted that with the fallout of Order 66, there would be some Jedi leaving the Order, Grand Inquisitor was set to be their anchor. At the same time, the three of them had some heads of state to kill. The Separatist Council and Mustafar had done their job. Sidious would now be taking complete control over the droid armies, including those that had been held in reserve since the second year of combat.
So now the Republic is fucked. Because, like, 3 trillion, droids are just gonna come landing on fucking Coruscant. Great.
At the Jedi Temple, Sinjalik was doing damage control. Because he didn't watch the full tapes, he didn't know Anakin was responsible for Windu's death. He just saw that Palpatine had the tapes for execution of Order 66, and so he assumed it had all the information he needed on it. Inversely, because Padme and her allies had time to go over the information inside the data chips, they saw what Anakin did. Assuming it was addressed within the ranks of the Jedi, they didn't bring it up. Instead, they were focusing on the rebuilding of democracy and filling up the hole left behind by Palpatine. Skywalker was trying to be as helpful as he could be, but there wasn't really anything he could do. Sinjalik and Shaak Ti were the experienced masters on Coruscant. They were taking care of everything. Sinjalik then tasked Anakin with getting a hold of his commander and making sure every clone in the Grand Army received the order to get rid of whatever chips caused all the damage. Anakin was able to do that, and with the help of Ahsoka, Skywalker could focus on trying to use some of the chaos to his advantage. Because Ahsoka was able to take a larger portion of the burden he was tasked with, Skywalker selfishly snuck into the restricted section to figure out how to save people from dying. Because of his actions, he would miss out on a pivotal moment in his marriage, the minute his wife gave birth to their twins. It was entirely because he was so focused on controlling the outcome of everything. He would be called from inside the archives after it was done and handled. As Skywalker went over, he would bring his little sister with him, because she was as much a family as anyone else. Anakin would be so happy in the moment, but there was a crippling thought in the back of his head. What if the chips didn't dysfunction? He never really thought about it, but he was about to march on the temple. What would he have done? It ate away at him so much that he couldn't properly enjoy the moment. On the bright side, at least Anakin and Ahsoka not being present didn't derail anything with the clones and getting rid of their inhibitor chips. Rex was able to take full control over the situation and then pass the orders on elsewhere across the Republic. Because the surgery was simple, most of the clones were able to get rid of the little bug and free themselves from the clutches of evil. Because of the Senate, they were able to get rid of Order 66. Ahsoka was grateful that Anakin was willing to include her into this side of his life, but even she could tell that there was something off with him. It was entirely because Anakin had one goal, and one motivation: revenge. He wanted to rip Palpatine limb from limb. If he executed Order 66 himself, he wouldn't have ever forgiven his own actions. Skywalker paced back and forth in the room, pleased that Padme survived, overjoyed at the birth of their twins, but filled to the brim with bloodlust. On the more pleasant side of things...
Alright, so that's it for part 1 of reacting to What If Order 66 worked on half the clones. As always, subscribe to Pente Patrol Star Wars. He made this video. Link to his channel and link to the original video down below in the description of this video. Check him out. Show him some love. And part 2 will be out at the same time as this. Link in the description. And yeah. Subscribe to me. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. Like the video, it helps out a lot. Share it to your friends, to everyone you know, to your dog, to your grandma, to everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Whoa. Thank you so much for watching. This is the way, and may the force be with you. Well, then, I'll see you next time. Hey, you didn't watch it? Well, check out the video on the left side of the screen, which is specifically recommended for you, or check out the playlist on the right of the screen, which contains similar videos to this one, made by me, of course. Hey, remember, subscribe.